Hi, my name is Zachary Bennett. When I was 27 years old, I was involved in a drunk driving accident. I am now turning 31 on the 19th, which is in a few days, and I'm still recovering.
What accidents did you have leading up to this?
Prior to that, I was in a few other small accidents where I ran off the road when I was drinking and driving.
What got you into drugs and alcohol?
Drinking, I got into it too because my father was a big drinker and he drank with me. We drank together. We went to motorcycle events and stuff like that for years. I got into drugs really bad in my late teenage years because a lot of friends were doing them and they were available, and I was smoking a lot of pot back then. And then when I stopped smoking so much pot, I started doing opiates, which are pain pills. And then because of the pain pills, when I would withdraw off the pain pills, somebody gave me some heroin, which relieved the withdrawals. That's what got me on the heroin. And then got me into alcohol again was when I quit doing the heroin. I was drinking after, because it was the only other thing I had.
How did you quit heroin?
Rehab. And just stopped.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh.
And I was on Suboxone for a little while. I went to rehab. I went to a halfway house. Yeah, Glens Falls halfway house. I was in the Schoharie clinic over here. I used to go there a couple times a week. I had one-on-ones, I had groups, and I also did AA.
What was your life like before this?
My life before this was I was working at a pizza place. I lived on my own. I had my car. I rode motorcycles. I rode four-wheelers. I did a lot of different things.
Describe what was happening the day of your accident.
The day of my accident, I was at work. I worked at Pizzagram in Schenectady. I got off of work and I was hanging out with a few of my buddies at work, and we were drinking at work. And when I drove home, I was in the back way over the mountain to Middleburg. I lived in the middle of nowhere, and I came around a corner and I lost control and I ran off the road and I hit a tree head on.
What surgeries did you have?
They cut my head open to relieve pressure because I had pressure in my brain. I also had I broke my hip. I had hip surgery. I had a few other surgeries I don't really remember. A lot of it's a blur to me.
How has this event changed your life?
It's completely changed my life 100%. I can't work like I used to. I can't use my arms like I used to be able to.
What is your daily routine like now?
My daily routine right now is I wake up, I have breakfast, I go to the bathroom, do all my regular stuff, and then I do my exercises, and then I usually go on my stand, which is a stand-up thing over there, for an hour, for 55 minutes twice a day.
How does the stand help you?
It stretches me out and gets me standing up straight.
How did this change your relationship with your friends and family?
It's changed my relationship with everyone completely because I can't do any of the things I used to do. My mom I see every day because I live with her. My dad I see often, but not as often as I'd like to. My friends I really don't see much. I talk to most of my friends on Facebook more than anything.
What can you tell us about your recovery process?
My steps in my recovery process are I go to Sunnyview Rehabilitation Center twice a week. I go walk up and down stairs. I walk in the hallway with a walker, and sometimes I walk on a treadmill too. And I do standing up and sitting back down, standing up straight, and they stretch my legs.
Hi, I'm Leslie, and I'm Zachary's mom, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experiences with Zachary. We didn't find out Zachary was even in the hospital until the next day when we couldn't find him. And then somehow the hospital contacted us through Facebook because even though he had his license and stuff on him, no one notified us. So we made a mad rush to Albany Med, and Zachary was in intensive care, neuro-intensive care unit. I lived there for 12 days. I didn't come home. I slept in his room because we didn't know if he was even going to make it. For 5 months, he was at Sunnyview or Albany Med, and I was with him every single day. I continued to work evenings until he came home in January of 2018. His limbs were contracted from being in the bed for so long. Like his arm was like this, you couldn't move it. His leg was contracted up. So when he went to Sunnyview, that was the first thing they worked on, was starting to get his limbs loosened up so he could actually use them. He had about 11 surgeries. He had part of his skull removed and then put back on twice, and that was very traumatic. Zachary also has a shunt in his head. It's actually called a brain drain, and it drains the excess cerebral fluid from his brain because it tends to swell his brain. So this drain goes all the way down through his abdomen, and it drains into his abdomen and keeps his brain from having the excess fluid in it. So he's going to have that for the rest of his life, as well as he has an artificial bone plate. Zachary had to have his whole hip reconstructed because he shattered it. So he's going to probably have arthritis in that and some pain in that for the rest of his life. Zachary had a blood clot filter installed because he had blood clots in the hospital, and that blood clot filter was not able to be retrieved from his body, so that will remain in his body for the rest of his life. And it is something that will have to be watched because it can move and gravitate, and it's in the main vein in his back. So, there are still things that are going to affect Zachary for the rest of his life, and a traumatic brain injury results in, the injury that he had sustained, but he also has a portion of his brain tissue that will never regenerate. So there is a brain damage there that will not ever heal itself. Zachary was most fortunate. He didn't have frontal lobe damage. Cognitively, his memory is all intact. He occasionally will have a short-term memory blurb, but he remembers everything from when he was a child. He just doesn't remember anything from the accident all the way up until a few months of being home. So that part of his brain closed that section out, and he just doesn't remember any of it. It's been a really rough road. When he first came home, we used a Hoyer lift, which was like a cradle net that went under him that we moved him around in. He lived in a wheelchair. He had to have his food pureed. He had to have his meds crushed. He had about 15 meds that he took. And it was very hard at first because I took care of him by myself. And then things got a little bit better. Zachary got better. We went to therapy. He started to progress. We never knew if he would be able to walk or not. And in the last 6 months, he has started using a walker. He goes to an accelerated gait program that they have at Sunnyview now that is a new program. And it's been a big help to him. And I still continue to work around Zachary. I do have aides that help me now. I have a baby monitor in my room that I keep track of him on when he's in his room. In the morning I get up, I have to get Zachary bathed and dressed. And then I bring him out and he eats his breakfast. And then usually by then I have an aide come in. And he has a whole routine. He's very regimented. He wants to follow his routine to the second, and any deviation from that tends to throw him off. He can go out in the car. We try to get him out as much as possible. Take him to restaurants, take him to stores, and the coronavirus has kind of sidelined all of that for all of us, but I still try to get him out. Now I don't have to bring a wheelchair with me because he can sit in a regular chair, so that's a big thing. I do work part-time because I need an income, but I also need time away from Zach, and he needs time away from me too. So we're just going to still take it day by day and continue to do what we're doing. And the thought is that Zachary's probably going to always have to live with me. And, I know he would probably like to be independent at some point, but, I'm not getting any younger either. So Zachary living with me is also helping me out in some ways. I'm just so glad that I have my son. He's not perfect. He'll never be perfect. He never was before, but he's a good kid, and I love him.
Aww.
I wanted to let everybody know that I had a really big support in my older son, Dustin, Zachary's brother, and they became very close after this, and I couldn't have taken care of Zachary without my other son's support and love. So I want to thank him for everything that he did for both of us.
What is your message?
My message to everybody is, if you're gonna drink, just don't drive. Or have somebody drive you. Or just don't drink at all. How about that?
Hi, I'm Racquel Gerstenberger.
Hi, I'm Andrea, and I'm an exchange student from Spain in Escoger Central High School this year, 2019-2020. And to validate my year in Spain, I had to do some voluntary service. So Racquel helped me to share Zachary Bennett's story with his drinking and driving accident.
Once a week, we visited Zach to interview him and play some games to make it more fun, to learn about his story and his accident.
Kim, Racquel's mom, and my host mom told us about him and that he really wanted to share his story. So we decided why not? It could count as my voluntary service and we could learn something about it. And it was a real pleasure to do it, and we hope you'll like it.